Hey guys, good morning. Robert Blackman. Hope everyone had a Merry Christmas, and I hope that you're going to have a Happy New Year. This is the end of 2020, which has been a crazy year for everybody, and ourselves included. And so today I wanted to share a little story with you that may be able to help you as you move forward through the rest of this year and also in 2021. As most of you may know, I had cancer. I had a back surgery back in August of 18. Was recommended radiation for that. And my legs were numb. It's like when you're driving a long time and your legs are asleep and you kind of get up and go to the gas station and you walk it off while you're getting gas, right? Mine would never walk off. So we went through several people until finally somebody says there's a small 3mm mass on your spine. They went in to get it. It wasn't on top of the spine. They had to go to second surgery. It was inside my spinal cord, and it was just attaching itself to the inside like, big pepper flakes. So the gentleman, basically my neurologist, he went in and tried to get a biopsy of everything. In the meantime, when he got a biopsy, there wasn't enough to really give it a conclusive, this is exactly what it is, so they recommended radiation as the best shot. In the meantime, I got nerve damage from just the surgery. Fourth week of the radiation, I fell sick, went into almost a coma. A week later of being in the hospital, they tapped my bone marrow and said, you've got stage 4 non-Hodgkin's B-cell lymphoma. And if you don't do something within 5 to 10 days, you're going to be dead. So then I got chemotherapy treatment, 6 of those treatments over about 3 months, almost died 3 times. Just from sepsis, just a cold. When your immune system's that low, it doesn't matter. I survived, obviously, but during that time, and here's where the negative trigger came in. And as you can imagine, I was in and out of the hospital for 2 years. I think my longest stint was about 4 months at a time. So I've got nerve damage, I got neuropathy from the chemotherapy, and then I got atrophy. A lot of you have been encouraging me as you see my videos that I do. I'm working out. I'm still in a wheelchair. I get people still today because I can't believe you're even in a wheelchair. You don't act like somebody that's in a wheelchair. And I go, well, I'm acting like Robert Blackman because that's who I am. So I had this, you're going to laugh at this. Several months ago, I went out at midnight in my wheelchair to train because I was going to be training for a marathon. I was getting into, since I can't run a marathon again yet, I was going to get in a marathon through the wheelchair. So I've just got a basic 2-wheel wheelchair, but I was looking online at these 3-wheel ones where you kind of get in it and they've got your helmet on and you can really get booking. And that there was going to be some marathons several months down the road. So I was going to be by the time I got to it, maybe in the 55 to 60 range or 60 to 65 range. So went out to train at midnight because Bond was out at a ball game. I was waiting for him to come back. So I was up anyway. So I go out, dark street, of course. I'm on the sidewalk. I hit a bump. Boom, I go flying out of the wheelchair. Wind's blowing, my wheelchair's kind of swirling around, almost going into the street. And so I can't crawl. I can't crawl because I can't move my knees because I don't have a little engagement in my hips yet, or my glutes. So I had to kind of crab walk back. Well, as I did that, I have no shoes or socks on because it's midnight, right? I was just going to go around the block and get a little workout in. It was hot. I was going to get a good sweat in. And I didn't notice, because I don't have feeling that much in my feet, that instead of my feet were like this, it turned sideways. And so here was my ankle bone. So I'm dragging the ankle bone along the driveway where I had fallen because I'd hit a bump. And get near the wheelchair, and the way that my wheelchair is made, I can't get up in it on my own, although I was trying. I finally got to the wheelchair. It took me 30 minutes to crawl across this one gentleman's driveway. 30 minutes, that's how long it took. To get to the wheelchair, push the wheelchair up against his brick mailbox, and was trying to lift myself like this several times until I realized I was scraping my back, and I reached back there and there was a little bit of blood back there. So all of this time, I was ignoring my ankle. Look down at my ankle, there's blood everywhere. So I said, well, I'm going to stop. So I text Bond. He says, we'll be there about 15, 20 minutes. So he and his buddy about 12:30 in the morning, 12:45, stopped by. I gave him the address. They picked me up, lift me in, and Bond goes, you're going to be in trouble with Mom. And I said, well, let's not tell Mom, all right? And he goes, it's going to be impossible. There's blood everywhere. So went to the wound doctor. We've been working on that. And finally, after several months, we sent me to an MRI, and I got those results back this week. And I actually have an infection in the bone. That's the reason why I wasn't healing. So I'm not going to tell you, it's just an infection. So I have to get high-powered antioxidants, not just your regular over-the-counter. So they had to put in a PICC line, P-I-C, a PICC line. You can Google and look that up. And I'd had 2 of those while I had cancer. And the PICC line is to give stronger antibiotics, and it makes it an easy entry into your vein and into your body. So this is a PICC line, so I can bring home 2 antibiotics. They go on the refrigerator. You go back once a week. They draw blood, and they give you another week's supply of antibiotics. So I'm sitting in the bedroom watching ball games, or I got my laptop out, and I'm on the PICC line. It's got all this, stuff that you do with the alcohol swab. You connect it up, and it drains automatically into your body. So it takes about 30 minutes for each antibiotic. So I was getting the PICC line, and again, I've always been one of these guys. If you're taking blood for me, I turn my head and I go, well, tell me how long you've been doing this, and I don't look. Usually the biggest guys are the biggest wimps, and I'm a big wimp when it comes to drawing blood. It's just not something, if I had to watch something for my kids or my wife, Sherry, I could do that. But when it's my own blood, forget it. So the PICC line is pretty severe as far as how they put it in. And as I was laying there, when is this? Today is Saturday. I was laying there on Wednesday. And the girl was sweet. She was awesome and was doing a good job. It was just me and her in the room. And it's a sterile environment. And so as I lay flat down, I got my arm laid all the way flat out. And it's kind of back behind me, and that's kind of uncomfortable too. And so she turns around and puts this little cape all the way over me. So I've got it all the way up to my neck, so nothing can touch my body. And if I'm lifting this arm up underneath the bed, it stops it. So it's got about this much clearance, and my body's underneath it, kind of like a little sleeve for the body. As I'm sitting there, she's humming, she's talking, nice girl in about her 30s. We're talking about her kids. Her daughter had gotten COVID. And we were talking about that. We're talking about her getting the vaccine. We had conversations about that. It was a non-political conversation, and just a beautiful conversation. And then all of a sudden, bam, out of nowhere. And it took about an hour to do from the time I got in there to the time she administered and was finished with the PICC line. It was about an hour. And so she was over here to the left, so my head was looking outside the window to the other side of the building and just chit-chatting. I immediately got flashback to OU Medical and to my cancer. And it felt like that. It felt like I was in that same room when I was taking chemotherapy, and I didn't think I was going to live. And I couldn't get out of that room. I could not get that scene out of my head. I could not get that feeling that I had. I was overwhelmed with emotion. And I wasn't even thinking of OU. I wasn't even thinking of my cancer. She and I were having positive conversations about each other, about the new year, about all the things that were positive that were happening, trying to overcome COVID, trying to get businesses going, trying to get individuals going, about the relief checks and all this stuff, and about how great it is, how great the frontline people are at the hospitals, and the people that are coming on board, the people who have left because they couldn't handle it. It was just an incredible conversation, and just out of nowhere, here it comes. And I actually, I've got a mask on, and I'm closing my eyes and she goes, "Are you okay? Are you in pain?" I said, "No." And I start to, bubble up, and I go, "I'm crying." And she goes, "Well, go ahead." She goes, "Is it me?" She goes, "Are you in pain? Am I hurting you?" And I said, "No." And I couldn't even talk. And I just started crying like a baby. Tears were just coming down. And she goes, "Sir, are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "This is reminding me of when I had cancer and I thought I was going to die." And I got transformed back to that time period. And I said, I'm caught into a negative trigger and I can't get out of it. And she goes, well, I'm going to pray for you if that's all right. And I said, yes, it is. Because if you're talking to someone else and they're spiritual, you can kind of tell. So she was obviously felt comfortable enough to say that. And I received that very well. And even through her saying that, it was probably 10 minutes off and on that I was phasing in and out of OU Medical, back to home where I'm at now. OU Medical, the emergency room where they said I had sepsis, and you guys seen the pictures where my face was all bloated. I had patches, red patches everywhere. And it was just probably one of the most unexpected negative triggers I've ever had in my life. And it was also a cleansing. It was like a growth. I needed it. It's almost like I was here when I went in there as far as where I was emotionally, and I walked out here. And so my message to you today is this. All of us suffer from something. All of us, as Jim as he said, all of us, the winds blow on all of us. The same winds blow on all of us. It's how we set our sails. And so I was able to be around somebody that was positive, that helped me set my sail so I got out of my negative trigger, and I set that sail myself. But for 10 or 15 minutes, I was caught in the storm. I couldn't get out. And I felt helpless because obviously I was strapped back. I couldn't get out. I was getting a little claustrophobic because I just wanted to leave. I can't walk yet, right? So all of that feeling came on. My legs started feeling numb. I started getting hot, sweaty. I said, can I pull my mask down? She said, no, it's a sterile environment. So that I was getting heated breath right there. And I just was freaking out. And it finally passed. But I was so sad about where I was and where I had been. And I was sad for how far I've got to go. And all of us feel that way on certain things, don't we? Personally, maybe even business-wise, relationship-wise, your marriage, as a parent, as a sibling, where you want to go in your career. And I just want to encourage you today to snap out of your negative trigger. To first, number one, realize that it's possible that you may be walking around and overwhelmed with grief or sadness and you don't know why. It's because something has triggered you to go there. Just like the PICC Line did for me. My PICC Line triggered me back into cancer. The days I was in cancer and I was taking chemo and I looked like hell. And I was in hell, and I didn't think I was going to make it some days, and I didn't know if I did make it, if I was ever going to be able to be a producer again for my family. Was I going to be able to provide for Sherry and the kids ever again? Fear. I was in fear for 10 to 15 minutes, and I was crying uncontrollably. 6'3", 220, and I was a big baby crying. Because we all have the same emotions. So I want to, number one, recognize if you're having trouble, ask yourself, is this a negative trigger? I'm feeling down, I'm feeling bad. Why am I feeling bad? Ask yourself the question. Tony Robbins talks about the quality of your life is determined by the quality of questions that you ask yourself. And so ask yourself, why am I feeling a little depressed? Why am I feeling negative? Why am I feeling down and depressed and sad? And why is my heart heavy? Why do I feel like someone just kicked me in the head or kicked me in the gut? Well, something may have happened consciously or subconsciously or even unconsciously that drew you back to an event or a time, something that was traumatic for you. A bankruptcy, a divorce, domestic abuse, alcoholism, drug abuse for you or a loved one or somebody that you were close to. So be aware, number one, if you're feeling bad, is it because of a trigger? Something a state. I know I was reading a book, I think it was by Dennis Waitley, The Psychology of Winning. and I've read that a dozen times. And he was talking about, it was him or Tony Robbins or somebody, that there was a person that they were counseling with that was standing in an office. They were at work, and somebody came behind them and just put their hand on their shoulder and said, "Hey, good morning, how are you doing?" And just walked away, just 3 to 5 seconds. And that person said within a minute, they went back into their office and they were overcome with grief. And they couldn't figure out why for days. And through the psychiatrist, they realized that at his father's funeral, somebody had come up behind them and put their hand on his shoulder and held it there for 10 to 15 minutes and then whispered in their ear, "I'm sorry about your loss," and walked away. So when that other person came, it just, "Hey, how you doing today?" And that touch on the shoulder was a negative trigger, something as subtle as that. So I want you to search today as you go through and find out, what are your negative triggers and what can you do to at least identify them, and then realize that we all have them. Robert Blackman's got them, and that you can overcome them. Number one, if you realize that it's because of that, it's easier to snap out of it. Okay, so anyway, so that's my prayer for you today, is that you guys can identify any negative triggers that you have. Take a deep breath and realize that you're not there anymore. You've overcome that, and that the best is still yet to come, as long as you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. As I say, one spin of a wheel in front of the other. I will tell you that I'm getting some really big biceps and shoulders. I've never been bigger because of the wheelchair. So that is something positive. And that I'm working on my legs to be as big as they've ever been before, so I can stand and walk again. And that's my goal. So anyway, guys, I hope you had a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and anything I can do for you all, let me know. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.